Hey everybody, this is Matt and I want to welcome you to a new series that we're starting called Uncle Matt Stories. And what I'm going to do is I want to tell you guys some old school stories about things that I've done building guitars. We might go back into some other parts of my life too, but I want to focus on building guitars and some of the things that brought me to where I am today. And I don't know, maybe give you guys an idea of what it was like back in the somewhat old days, back in the 80s, which was quite a while ago, 40 plus years ago, almost 45 years ago. So anyway, the first thing that we want to talk about is, I want you to maybe think of some questions and make sure to leave them in the comment section, because even though I don't answer every single question, I mean, I physically can't do that because I have a day job building guitars, but I do read all of your comments, and some of them are really good. If you can think of anything that we can curate into a, an Uncle Matt story, then I hope that you do that, and I hope that we can make this be kind of a thing that we do. Because one, I like to relive the past because I'm of that age now, and two, these are really easy videos to make. There's no editing. I just sort of start going and free forming and having a good time and walking down memory lane a little bit. But you don't have to go too far back in history, because one of the first things I want to talk about today is the 2025 Great American Guitar Building Contest. So, as you will no doubt recall, if you've been following me for any amount of time, last year, which was really just a couple of weeks ago, last year's contest was the 100 ounce challenge. And that was essentially you could build any guitar you wanted as long as it didn't weigh any more or any less than 100 ounces, give or take an ounce. And I think that was a very challenging thing to have people do. I think it was a fun thing for those who did it, but I also think that it turned a lot of people off. The year before that, the only rule was that you couldn't spend more than $400 retail building your guitar. Now, your time wasn't included in that $400, just the parts. Okay. That was another one of those things that I think turned a lot of people off, because they kind of wanted to circumvent the rules, and I kept coming up with ways to say, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. And frankly, it got a little bit annoying, and that's why last year it has to weigh 100 ounces. The year before that was just kind of make whatever you want. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that model. So in 2025, there will be no ridiculous or absurd guitar builder's rule that you have to follow. The only thing that I want to talk about is how your guitar will be judged. Okay, so just to reiterate, for the 2025 Great American Guitar Building Contest, there are no rules at all. Make whatever you want. Buy whatever you want, spend as much as you want. It can weigh as much as you want or as little as you want. It can be a bass, it can be a guitar, whatever. We don't care. But what I want to talk about is how it's going to be judged. All right. So I think that's important. First and foremost, just like all the other contests, Chris and myself will not be doing any judging at all. Okay, we had a guy who this year said, I think this was rigged, and I'm like, well, why would I rig my own contest? That, like, what do I get out of that? So I didn't rig the contest so that I could make even less money, which is zero, than I made. It just seems like a weird thing. But remember, we don't judge the contest. We bring outside judges in. Now, what I do is I put the judges' criteria together. Here's what you will be judging on, and this is the same as it's been since day one. Okay, you will be scored 1 through 10 on the following things. The first one is design and execution. So what that means is, if you had like a chart where one thing that was designed very well on the bottom and executed very well on the up and down, you know, something like, well, let's just use the classics. A Stratocaster and a Les Paul are designed and executed, generally speaking. Everyone knows what those are. I think that the Strat is designed better than the Les Paul, but I think that the Les Paul might be executed a little better than the Strat. So I would put them right about in the same category. You might put them somewhere else, and that's the beauty of not having me judge, right? The other thing, the things that we're going to judge on is going to be fit and finish. Now, I think that, to use the classic example of Strats and Les Pauls, I think that we could probably all agree that generally speaking, Strats are better finished than Les Pauls, unless you really like binding. And then in that case, it's rare to find a Strat with body binding. It's not unheard of, but it's not you know, commonplace either. We're also going to be judging on. Gosh, too bad I'm not editing this out. These might be, I might be misremembering these. They might be out of order when the judges get them. One thing that we're going to be talking about and judging on is how marketable is this design. So again, to use Strats and Les Pauls, you know, if it costs you $100 to make the guitar, and you can only sell the guitar for $105. I'm just spitballing here. That's certainly, even if it was executed and designed very well, but it just isn't quite marketable, you know, versus something that it costs you $100 to make and you make $500 every time you sell it. Well, that would be considerably more marketable. Ease of manufacturing, that sort of thing. The Stratocaster is considerably easier to let's say, buff than a Les Paul, because you can pull the neck off. You don't have to have, you know what I mean? There's a great big cavity there. You can buff right up to the cavity and then put a pick guard on there for the traditional ones. Okay. One other category that we're going to be judging on, of course, is playability. Now, this is going to be up to the judge's ability to play, but if you have stuff like fret sprout poking out like that, you know, or buzzing notes or sharp things, or you lean over and the guitar pokes you, that kind of stuff, that'd be right out. So you want to make the guitar play very well. I can't remember if we said it or not, but since we're not editing this, we're going to talk about finish quality. Finish quality is one of those things that you can have a picture that looks really excellent, but when you look at the guitar up close, you might find some things that aren't quite up to speed. Point of here is an idea for those of you who have struggled with finish. If spraying on a hard finish is something that is a problem for you or is problematic for you and you don't want to get dinged for it, I would say use an oil finish. Okay, real easy to do. Now, you're not going to be competing at the same level as someone with really fancy paintwork, but you won't be dinged for lousy paintwork. Okay, I'm not naming any names or anything here. I'll let you guys decide who's good at paint and who's not. But finish quality is very, very important, especially when it comes to marketability. So those things kind of go hand in hand. Finally, we have the X factor. That's going to be up to the judge's individual preference for, you know, that little something extra that is maybe extra sensory, tough to qualify, tough to quantify, as it were. Little bit of je ne sais quoi. So X factor, you know what I mean? And again, you'll be judged 1 through 10 on all of these things. In 2025, I don't know where the contest is going to be, but I can tell you it will not be held at Texas Toast again. Not because it wasn't fun, but because I think that I want to do it someplace that's more set up for something like this. 2, I don't know exactly the date of the contest, but I can tell you have approximately a year from the time of this video that I make this video, which is August 18th or whatever. You'll have approximately a year to get your guitar done and ready to go. I can tell you that here's a non-negotiable for me. The contest will cost $100 to enter every guitar you want, depending on how many $100 bills you got. And the winner will take home all of that money. Every so often we get someone who says, what if you had someone who was the second place winner? They should get something too. I don't really like that idea. I kind of like this all or nothing approach because somebody could win a lot of money if there was a bunch of entrants. So even last year, Devin walked away with $1,000 because there was 10 entries. Okay. Remember, I don't make any money off of this contest. So finally, there will be some other prizes that we'll be giving away. We'll be courting some prize donors. So hopefully we can have some prizes besides cash. But I do want the winner to walk away with a fat stack of cash again. So there you go. If you guys have any questions about the upcoming Great American Guitar Building Contest that I may have an answer to but didn't answer in the video, like I said, I don't know what the date's going to be yet. I don't know where the contest is going to be held yet. I don't even know who the judges are going to be yet, except that I know it's not going to be me. It's not going to be Chris. Okay. But if you have any questions about some other stuff, or you want to talk about it some more, please let me know in the comment section below. Like I say, I read all of those comments. Now let's go back in time with an Uncle Matt story, and I want to talk about one that's a fun one. I want to talk about the very, very first time I ever met a guitar builder. So it was probably 41 or 42 years ago. It was on Old South Pearl in Denver, Colorado, probably at about Iowa Street. You can go looking for it. The building's still there, but I believe it's a dentist office now. But back in 1983, 82, 83, there was a guitar shop there. Now, the neighborhood's very different now. Rent in Denver is very different now than it was in 1982 or 83. So I was out with my Uncle Bill, and he was wandering around the neighborhood, and he found this guitar maker. And he was one of those guys who liked to stop in and chat with everybody, kind of like Jimmy is. He like everybody's buddy. Good guy to know, right? So he would wander around the neighborhood and just kind of see what people were up to and hang out with them for a while and get to know them. So he met this guitar builder, and I was 12 or 13 at the time. And he said, "Hey, I met a guitar builder. You want to go meet him?" I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds fun." I had no idea this was a thing. There's a guitar builder. So we walked into his shop, and I was immediately interested. I immediately fell in love with all the kind of hulls of guitars on the wall, mostly acoustic, as I recollect. And he was telling me about what it was like to be a guitar builder in Denver in 1983. And boy, I just thought that was the neatest thing. I don't even remember the man's name. I remember a lot about this meeting that I had one and only time. I remember where his shop was because I lived right by there. And I remember him very specifically telling me, if you want to get into guitar building, here's what you got to do. Go to the library, to the 787 section of the library, and find a book by Don Teeter. There's actually 2 books by Don Teeter. I'm pretty sure there were 2 then. And that's in again, I don't know why I remember the 787 section of the library, but if there is still a Dewey Decimal System at the library, you can still go if you have a big enough library, and you can find these Don Teeter books. They're classics. They're so classic, I even have copies of them now in my library. But they're all about acoustic and classical guitar construction. And man, back then, that was one of the few resources that there were. Now, in 82, 83, there was some other books in the library right around that 787, Dewey Decimal there. I checked those out too. I don't remember what they were, but the Don Teeter books stick out because I have copies for myself now. If you're a guitar builder, you should have those books too, even if you don't make acoustic guitars. But I just remember being amazed at this guy who earned a living building. He probably did repairs too, but building instruments and helping people make music. And that was when I got bit at a very, very young age by the guitar building bug. And so I want you to go to the 787 section of the library. Hopefully there's those Don Teeter books are still there. I'm sure they are. Hopefully there's lots more others. But remember, back then, there was no YouTube. Back then there was no Google. There was no internet forums of guys doing this stuff, which are great resources for learning. There was finding a guy on Old South Pearl Street who just so happened to be a Renaissance man building guitars and kind of getting your feet wet in guitar building. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.